felt like is I'm kind of lost, but I kind of know I'm here with my finger on the pulse of something cool. And when you watch it walk through and see how it can be applied, in the real world, that nugget that you can take away and have an actionable item on is very powerful. So we're going to kind of continue that. Alisher will take the wheel in a second. I just want to remind you that Alisher and Sharon do not have their Friday night class. It has been moved to Mondays. Mondays is a better night for them and for their community. And it just so happens that on Monday nights, it's the perfect place to just kind of get back into the groove of doing something cool. And it's a definite halfway point between our Wednesday classes, Thursday mornings, and then, going full tilt into something else. I think that's pretty awesome. So if you get a chance, definitely Mondays are Alisher and Sharon. Obviously, Saturday nights are or not tech and schools, innovators think tank. I'm not sure on the deadline. I wish Cash Money Kev was here, but they are taking their open enrollment for applications. Obviously, they've started an accelerator slash incubator slash, let's help you get to the next level kind of mastermind group. And they are accepting applications for 5 people. And those people will already have established businesses. So if that fits you, go ahead. If that's not you and you're just starting out and you're thinking to yourself, I created this really awesome thing at Ideas to Impact and I don't know what to do with it. That would be your Saturday night. Pardon me, Artemis, my dog, locked herself in the room. Saturday night is when you would go to Innovators Think Tank and do their 30-second pitch or 60-second pitch. A lot of people are very intimidated by that. But it's an important exercise to hone your skills, hone your ability to craft a message and a narrative that hits home with people. And for many people that are taking our classes here on Ideas to Impact, this is their first business. This is their first rodeo. They don't have, they don't know what they don't know, right? And when you're trying to sell something or craft that message, sometimes it's not as obvious as we think it is. And having a environment where you can safely kind of explore that kind of messaging and have feedback that's not gonna shoot you down and make you not want to do anything else anymore. It's a safe place, put it that way. So definitely highly recommend that. Also, we also have AI John, who's in our audience. He's one of our students. He has a daily thing. And if you like AI, if you want to have your finger on the pulse of what's going on, there are a couple different really amazing things that I would, put on your calendar. AI John has a lot of wonderful guests and wonderful people. He's a good man, and it's been a joy getting to know him. Sharon has her magazine, What the LLM. This is a real magazine, folks. So it's kind of a distillation of what's going on in the AI world, so that you don't have to drink from the fire hose. You can go down the lazy river, kind of in an inner tube, and take the AI world as you please. I see Julie Todd is also in the audience. Julie is incredibly, just incredibly gifted. And she is a free agent right now. So she's accepting clients. And if you want to augment your messaging and things like that, I think Rutro and Dan have collaborated. And I think that's really cool, right? One of the things that happens in these classes is that collaboration really is the next currency. You meet people because you've shown up daily. You get to know them, not in a superficial way. You're helping each other and building each other's businesses. And that's very powerful. You get to know people on a deeper level. And you're not catfished necessarily. I'm not saying that we're guaranteeing against catfishing, but I can just tell you, if you've met somebody that showed up for a Wednesday night and cried and screamed and swore at their computer screen, you get to know them a little bit better when you see them at their not so great moments, frustrated, and how they're dealing with problem solving. It reveals a lot about their character, who they are, what they're about, and what matters to them. So definitely have started a lot of businesses in this space. And I hope that you do take the time to look to the left, look to the right, get into the Slack channels, learn how the Slack channel works, create your own little playgrounds and sandboxes. We love to see you explore every facet of the tools that have given have been gifted to you in one way, shape, matter, or form in your digital backpacks. You are creating soft and hard skills that you will need to reimagine yourself in the age of AI. So, at any rate, I think I've babbled enough to get Alisher up and running. I see Magna has showed up. Artie Fish, welcome, welcome. What comes to mind is also here, Masha, of course. I do see Daniel down in the listening audience. Welcome. This is a class, so most of these folks have been here for many seasons, almost a year, which is crazy to think about. You are a welcome guest. We do only bring up the speakers that are in the class, though, because this is a down and dirty Thursday morning, which means it's not a 5.5-hour class on Wednesday night. We're just kind of going over, tying up loose ends, asking questions, getting things done, got it, did kind of thing. I see that Madison is here also. Not familiar with you, but welcome, welcome. If you're a robot, you're still welcome. We embrace our augmented friends and hope you are doing well. All right, Alisher, do you have your live stream up? I'm not seeing it.
Yep, everything is up.
I
I
see it.
put the live
Yep.
stream on the Jumbotron. And
Excellent. You sound
here's the
great.
problem, though. I try to invite you and the tech PFP, which is also me, but on my computer as co-host, but it says I can't do it. It says that I have my latitude co-host somewhere. So we'll just YOLO it and hope my phone
You
doesn't
know
crash.
what? There it is. I don't need to be a co-host. I don't need fancy titles. I'll always be your wingman. So there it is. Go ahead, hun.
Yeah, so I have the
It
live
just
stream
means
up.
I can't bring people up, so I won't
I
be
know
able to see
that's
them.
so unfortunate, so I'm gonna have to pay attention a little bit more to it.
Yes, you are.
It's okay. We'll figure it out. That's why I've been inviting people to speak right now from the start. Yeah, guys, feel free to request. We're going to be here answering questions. I'm going to go over what we did last night. I also kind of was building along with you guys, and then I woke up and just felt like building, so I just kind of continued. And yeah, I'll answer some of your questions. There's also some questions that we had last night that I kind of went and did some research on, that I played around with, in between. So maybe some unanswered questions we can solidify. And then, yeah, the StreamYard live stream is up. It's in the Slack if you want to come and join, if you have like a specific code question or you would like to show something in order to explain it better. But other than that, I'll try to recap what we did, 1 through 3, and then I'll recap what we did last night specifically. Okay, does anybody have any questions before we start? All right. See, I'm not seeing
I'm
any
so
questions.
sorry, Alisher. I'm not seeing any questions either.
Yeah.
One of the things, okay, so if Alisher is not able to bring up co-host, let's wing this, right? You're definitely going to use and abuse the purple bubble, and I'm just going to troll it and stalk it like an ex-girlfriend in high school. That's what kids used to say. I know that's kind of derogatory, but it's very true. If you want to know something, you have to have one of those folks that are persistent. But I will look at the purple bubble down below and the Slack channel, because we can't see you, right? So I see you, Whitney. I love Whitney so much. And I see Comfort too. Welcome, Comfort. All right. So you're going to have to send up signal flares if you have a question, and be comfortable with silence today. I will try to fill it in as best as I can because I know some of you, it drives you nuts and it gets you anxious, but we're working. So don't worry about it. Hakuna Matata. Embrace it.
We have AI John and Magna up, and I think they always ask really good questions.
Of course they do.
So
I'm seeing Magna as a
we're in
listener
safe
though,
hands.
so there it is. But yes, okay, cool beans. Well, welcome to class. Alisher, take it away.
Okay, guys. So we have our template. You can get this in GitHub. You can get my version where I've been making edits for the past 4 weeks as well. And week 1, we got introduced to AI Tutor API. If you guys remember, it's this website where we made workflows. And for us, workflows, as we went on kind of exploring and playing around with them, are essentially like this AI machine where we give it inputs and it gives us a specific output based on the directions that we give it. The main difference between this and something like ChatGPT, well, the workflow you'll run once versus ChatGPT, you have a continuous conversation. That's been mainly what we've been working on the first 3 weeks, is creating these workflows. And what this workflow allows you to do versus something like a conversation is have a much more complex input and output system, right? Because typically within a conversation, you're not really going to say, here are my inputs, give me this output. Typically, you'll have something that's more of a natural of a conversation versus this, a workflow, is something that's more like an AI machine that you're really using for its response. Now, I made a workflow. I think I made this workflow in week 2. And this workflow is simple. It uses the web scraper, web page content functionality to take a website. And based on certain keywords within the website, based on whatever it sees on the website, and the company name, of course, it creates a Google ad. And that was one of the first things we started with. We discussed what models are good for what. Right now, I'm using Gemini 2.0 Flash just because, my thought process was I'm targeting Google, right? I'm creating Google ads. Gemini is a Google model. So I might as well, keep it all streamlined and keep it all within the same environment, the same ecosystem. I'm assuming Gemini will know more about Google capabilities and Google algorithm than other models. But there's some things that other models do that, like something like Perplexity. No other model in here will search the internet except Perplexity. If you look at a lot of these models, they're either thinking models or regular text models. But Perplexity is the only one that really searches the internet. You could also, of course, scrape a web page, which is what this web page content option does. And some things here, when you guys are writing out your prompt, you have variables within those double brackets. You can have as many variables as you want, but for me, I just have 2. I kept it really simple. Simplicity is key, right? So the less inputs you have, typically, the more user will actually use this workflow. So you really just need to have a really good prompt in this situation, just like a prompt that really gives you the right output. You got to zero in on this prompt. That's the important part here. And if you notice, you have this input configuration. Now, this first column, it will detect automatically based on the text that you put here. So I have a bunch of variables that are with double brackets, and that's what is detected. Now, the second part where you can actually change it, that's related to your website. So these second columns of labels, that's supposed to correspond what you have in your code. That's how it links it. If you guys are, to give you guys sort of an idea of why there are 2 different fields. One is what it detects in your prompt, and then the other field, the one you can actually edit, is what the label of that field is in your website. And so you guys know, I'm going to go to my website, and I'm going to go to what I built last week. Oh, I don't think I have it running. So we'll do npm dev. And another thing is I had to switch to npm instead of pnpm. So I recommend that everybody, regardless of what computer you're on, uses npm, because there's something with pnpm where it's slightly outdated. It has some sort of an issue with like packages and outdating and certain things not lining up. So that's why I switched back to npm. Some things you guys will notice, I actually fixed the sidebar issue where on smaller screens, it would like overtake it. And here, this is the page that I have. Instead of the story generator, I have my ad generator. These inputs, the labels of these input fields, because almost every input field has a label in our code. That's what that second column that's editable is for. So realistically, you can name it anything, but for consistency, And so when you come back to this later and you don't really remember what this project was about, because that happens to me quite a lot, we just keep it the same. And that's what we mostly focused on weeks 1 and 2. And then we really got into it and we started building out our front ends, right? And what was important when we built out our front ends is that you have a consistent output. Because typically you have output that's a block of text, right? But what we changed it to is to have an output that's a JSON. So at the end, what I added is give me the output for each option in a JSON format. And by having JSON format, you could even specify the format itself, right? You could give it all of those JSON fields. What you're doing, and I highly recommend that you guys do, is you specify where and what is in each output. Give it some structure, because then you have consistent structure for the output, and you can use that and plug it into your UI, right? It makes it very easy for the UI and the actual output to line up. Because if you guys see here, in my case, I have my inputs. That's simple. That's just an input field. But the output, it needs to have consistently, this layout where I have almost like a field and then the value for the field, right? It's almost like a database type layout, something that's extremely structured, because code, you're going to have very hard time trying to just interpret a block of text and trying to format a block of text and turn that into UI. Because text, it's going to have different number of characters. It could potentially have different structure, different number of paragraphs, versus JSON structure, very, very rigid. That's what we want from code. And then out of this, I build a UI that looks something like this. So we take a website, we can scrape it. Let's try, we'll do AI Builders website, aibuilders.dev. And the reason I give it a company name is because in my prompt, I say always refer to the company in the ads using the company name. Very important if you're, specific for that industry. This is kind of like the idea of building a micro SaaS, is you really want to zero in on this particular industry, particular niche, and kind of get into that mentality of, well, you always want to repeat the company name because that's good for SEO. And here, as you can see, we build out this UI, and each field that we get from the API, from that rigid structure that we have, like for example, if we put these side by side so you guys see, this is a good kind of like connecting section for us. So here we have option 1. So it's going to have 1, 2, 3, however many options. In a prompt, I let it choose however many it wants, at least 5. And then you have link. And of course, that link is going to correspond to this link that we click, this link that you see here. You have title, and that title is going to correspond to the actual title of the ad. You have description, and you have a little description for the ad. Here you have the rationale. You can line it up where you can see it in the structure. Of course, you have the score number. It's the one you see here as a pie chart. And then you have keywords to target. Here's an array of keywords as well. And so essentially, by giving the structure, you're making it easier on yourself to build out something that looks nice. That's pretty much all we did, right? And what you guys can try to do is you can try to give it a particular structure and then go to AI and say, well, around this structure, build out a UI for me. And then you can specify how you want it to look like. You want it to have rounded corners. You want to have a pie chart. A lot of these things, actually, the AI assumed and filled in for me. Things like the colors, things like these layouts, these little animations. And all you have to do is say something like, make this professional, make this sleek, make it animated, engaging. You just got to give it some keywords and you got to give it the actual code so you know how to edit it. That's what we did week 1 through week 3. Any questions about just getting started with the workflows, right? We went over workflows. Um, since we're mostly moving on to actually the chatting UI, I highly recommend, if you guys have any questions, feel free, request speaker. Um, I'm more than happy to spend some time talking about workflows before we move on. Just so you know, your own mental workflow here should be: you create a prompt with variables, you edit the input UI, which is this box over here, to match with those variables, and then you edit this output UI, which is a story display, I think, in our code, to match the output. Right, so these are your variables here on top, and this is the output. And because we have that rigid JSON structure, makes it extremely easy for us to just plug it into the UI, and it'll work every time if the structure is, is consistent. This is actually something that we did with Sharon on Monday. Remember Sharon?
She doesn't have the mic, I don't think, but she's giving you hearts. She remembers. That's what she said.
But yeah, some models are really good at this, others not so much. So yeah, you just got to figure out how to get a good structured output out of your model. I think something that we saw similarly in Masha's UI. I think the UI had a lot of good elements where it had like a specific structure as well. Go ahead, Sharon. I see your hand.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Yeah, I remember. But Alex, sure, I wanted to, since you wanted to spend some time speaking about workflows, what you said about simplicity. So I was thinking to myself too, if we have a lot of input fields, maybe the user doesn't want to waste their time doing that. So I'm just wondering, if, because for me it's like I'm thinking about minimum input, maximum output. So since we have LLMs now that can basically do a lot on their own, right? Since they're intelligent, as everybody says. So I'm just thinking, kind of, if it probably would be cool if we could minimize the input from the user to make it just easier and flow better. I just wanted to put that out there because I really love what you said, because I'm trying to focus on that really as simple as possible, but giving the user as much value as possible.
I agree. I like the way you put it. Minimum input, maximum output. And in that situation, you might want to use things like thinking models, right? Because then those thinking models, they kind of give you a lot more thought out output. So it's a lot more predictive versus relying on all these inputs. But you could also make the inputs fun, right? So let's say you want to have 10 input fields. There's only so many input fields you can make that are just text boxes. Well, let's try maybe some drop downs. Let's maybe try some sliders instead of just having, input boxes for numbers and text. Like you have like a little dial where you turn the dial to put in the number. You could make it fun and engaging where they use their fingers versus just typing, because typing can get tedious.
You know how people are. That makes them want to give up. People are looking for, they want it easy and simple, and we're just, yeah, in the modern day world. And I think AI can really help us with that, right? Because we're looking for more productivity, we're looking for more simplicity. So I would just focus on that when you build it out, because user flow, I've been thinking about this really a lot lately. User flow, user experience. I have a feeling that is the most important thing. It's even more important than maybe the design, having a app that looks good, but if it's clunky and it stresses the user out, right? And it's kind of complicated because there's numerous fields the person has to fill into, then they might give up. Right, that's just something that I realize. Even myself, if I'm using an application and it's like kind of clunky and I have all these input fields and it's like it's I feel like it's a waste of my time, even though I would get a lot of value. And the repository of from Alisher and Ross, because I have my workflow has a pull down, so you guys can copy that code in there and use that. Then you guys can have like a pull down where the person just selects instead of inputting. That might be a good alternative.
What you're talking about is reducing friction. You know, the more friction there is in the system, the more resistance you're going to get. So if you can reduce those speed bumps, then you get to go faster. So that's basically it.
Yeah, and I think another thing to that is by reducing like the type of inputs, or like by reducing these text boxes, because you can put a lot of things in a text box. You're kind of like reducing the error as well. So if you give it, instead of giving it options 1 through 10, you only give it, options 3, 6, and 9, for example. Speaking more vaguely. But yeah, by reducing like these things that could go wrong, you'll get even more consistent output. Just like here for me, what I noticed was that every time I would make an ad, it actually wouldn't refer to the company by its name. And that's a little bit problematic because you want to put the name somewhere in there. And so I had to add this extra field for company name. Maybe I could even add a workflow in between where it reads the whole website, figures out what the company name is automatically, and then generates the ad. But that would be like a multi-workflow. That's another way you can reduce inputs, is by having multiple workflows chained together. I think Sharon has a repository somewhere that does that. So you guys can check that out as well. Okay, guys, questions about workflows, about creating this workflow page, editing it. And you guys can see, I didn't edit it as much, right? If you saw Mush's project, Masha changed a lot of the color schemes. I didn't even bother. I just edited the inputs, and I changed what the output looks like. And everything else is pretty much stock. When I click on history, it still looks really weird because it just has this raw text instead of formatted text. It's super basic. I didn't really put any time into that. I just focused on actually making the inputs and the outputs work. I didn't even spend that much time on my prompt, because for the prompt specifically, you want to really specify what the output should look like. If you want consistent output every time from the AI, because sometimes it'll make it'll start out with something like, here's your response, or here's your output, or here's your analysis. And if you want something that's consistent in JSON, you don't really want it to start with plain text. So by giving it some sort of an idea what the output, the response should look like, you'll get more and more consistent results. And that's with anything. If you have a system prompt in your AI tutor or ChatGPT, if you give it an example, a rigid example of the structure of the response that you want, it'll follow it every time. It'll be really good at it. It's one of the perks of AI. And feel free to request as well, guys. I have my phone here in front of me, so I should be able to see it. Okay, now moving on. Let's talk about what we actually did yesterday. And yesterday we spoke about the streaming and the chatting. That was our main topic. Now, in the API platform, I'm going to let it save. That's going to correspond to a chatbot. And you have two ways of using the chatbot. First way is, the easy way where you embed it straight from the API. And then there's the harder way where you kind of build out your own UI and you do streaming of the response. So let's check out the chatbot integration. Now, what's cool about these, I'm using this one. Yeah. For now, majority of the models, and typically what you'll see in the chatbots, is going to be a GPT OpenAI model, but we'll be adding more. But you have an option here, either this Omni model or the thinking model. And if you want speed, you'll just go for the Omni model if you really don't want the thinking part of it. And then you can kind of train it with some data, whether it's a web page, it's going to use the same type of crawling function, PDF, or some sort of an Excel file that you want to train it for, or just leave that empty and then add your system prompt in your code instead. Now, these chatbots, it's going to essentially act like any other chatbot. You'll be able to ask it questions, talk to it. And a lot of the integration is really going to be done from the code side, where you're setting your system prompt if you want a system prompt. Or if you don't want to use this RAG, you kind of want to have a user-facing RAG, you can use the RAG API that we have.
Alisher, what do you mean by user-facing RAG?
Well,
What
check
does
this out. This is RAG as well, right? Where you give it context. So in here, I can upload like 10, 20 PDFs and have a RAG, but it's kind of like a RAG that's embedded in the chatbot. You guys are the developers. Whoever's using your website, those are the users, right? So in order for them to have their own RAG where they upload files and PDFs, you need something where you use the RAG API instead. That's the difference. So you could still upload the training here. Let's say if you have a very specialized bot that's supposed to do something specific like documentation or protocols and whatnot, and you can give it a lot of the docs to train on, then you're going to use the RAG here instead of AI Tutor, right? Because then every response, every user-facing response is going to have that RAG and is going to have that data in its memory. And then,
I get it.
Yeah. And then if you want your users to have RAG, like what Masha is doing, where she wants to chat, she wants her users to chat with a PDF. Then you need like a user-facing RAG where they can upload something, and then it will return, in a client-facing code as well. What's up,
Alex, real quick, just to jump in, a RAG is a retrieval augmented generation. So, when we kind of banter that about, that's what we're talking about, is a retrieval augmented generation. And I wanted to make sure that was on the recording. It's basically at the very core, it kind of combines, like a retrieval based method, which is what Alice was discussing, and those generative models. And what it does is it really improves the quality, I guess it is, and the relevance. That's the big key here, is the relevance of response. So, it's allowing AI to kind of pull from all of the different external information, like databases or web pages and all that stuff. It's pulling from everything, and it's used to actually enhance what it's generating. This is not scraping, right? It is iterating, it's generating, it's a very different kind of concept. And sometimes it's hard to kind of connect that in the human brain, that it's actually synthesizing, right? And it's kind of, rather than like relying solely on pre-trained kind of knowledge, if that makes sense. So, this is really, really useful for providing like the very most up-to-date stuff, or context kind of specific answers. So that's kind of what we're talking about. And if you have your notebook off to the side, like we kind of suggest you do, make sure you just write RAG and write retrieval augmented generation. Use your AI of choice to kind of walk you through what that actually means, and maybe create your little mind map so that you understand how this is working. Because, sometimes it's really easy to get lulled into the misconception that it's just scraping. It's not, it's synthesizing. And synthesizing is a completely different beast altogether. And that's once you realize what it's doing, then that moment, the light bulb moment clicks in your head and you're like, I get it. These workflows, are responsive. They're synergetic kind of. I think that might be the wrong word, but you hear what I'm saying. Sharon, you have your hand up, love.
I just had this idea. So this is probably a different way that we could probably go about in our workflows if we want to rather use the chat instead of this other way of doing it, like input field. And so, you could have the AI. So what I'm understanding, you can make the AI specialize, and then you can have the user put a doc in, and then you can have the AI analyze it whichever way, and then give the user a response based on that. So let's say the person has an ad or so and wants it to be better, then you can have an ad specialist as a chatbot that analyzes the ad of the person and then makes it better or so, or gives ideas. I'm just thinking that might be a good idea, to then have an alternative to these input fields. Let the client or the user just input a file, and then it'll also be easier for the user if that matches whatever your goal is, right?
Yeah, yeah, and also to think about like the chatting part, really think about more than one response, right? If you want to have a continuous conversation about something, that's why it's really good to have some sort of like a file upload and retrieval system, because then for me, for example, I was testing with a case study that I did in college, and I was just asking about the case study. It's like a 20-page document. So you wouldn't really be able to do that in a workflow, have that continuous conversation and build on whatever was said before. But with RAG and with the chatting part of it, you would. So if your end goal is to have a conversation versus your end goal is like a specific structured output, that's you got to kind of analyze, maybe in your mind, brainstorm a little bit what kind of tool you're trying to build, right? Is it something where users just go type in 1 to 2 lines, get an output? Or is it something where users go and continuously talk to their AI?
Would it make sense in some cases to have both?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, right. If you have a more comprehensive maybe application where the user has numerous places to go or so,
You could link it in a way where you could start with a workflow. You give it the input, right? It gives you the structured output, and then you bring that structured output into a conversation and start talking about the output, what it means, what the next steps could be, etc., etc. Right now we have a very separated. Maybe you can connect them somehow.
This is super powerful. I mean, similar to the Champ app, right? We have the user inputs, then gets an output that goes into the calendar, and then the person could have a chat bot in that part of the application where it can then talk about its calendar, for example, right? Oh, and get more tips or so. So this can be like, if you're doing an application, maybe like a journaling app or something like that, that could be super useful. The first step would be the user fills out its form, because that's how I'm building the Champ app. And I think that that's going to be a good future, because no one's focusing on the users. We're all focusing on businesses. I mean, we are focusing on users, but Alisher said that on Monday, like, there's so many business applications, but what about us? What about us? We want to have applications that make our lives easier too, right? That's why I'm building Champ app, and you guys can think in that way too. The user puts in their information, gets analysis based on the information, and then uses the application and AI to get to its goal, to get to their goal or so. I think that's really cool. I mean, you guys built something really powerful. There's so many opportunities here to build really good applications that can make you guys a lot of money.
Yeah, and it's all like a few API calls. It's really all you need. Okay, now the actual chatbot. Let me. I lost track a little bit. You guys can test the chatbot in here, talk to it, see if responds. But ultimately, what you will need is this ID, right? So this is your chatbot ID, and this corresponds to chatbot ID in your environment variable. So this is where we're gonna go to our code now and actually link it in our code. I'm gonna grab this and I'm gonna go to my code. And here I have my chatbot ID. Is it the same one? Yeah. Now I am gonna save this. I'm also gonna separate these. And now we're gonna need this AI tutor token variable. And the easiest way to get this variable, in the starter kit that you guys get in your code, there's actually, if you go to your profile on the bottom left, there's a token page where you can get this. So instead of having to go and do the curl call, you can just do it right here, just this one button. It's already in your workflow. I mean, in your code. And that's all we need. This token. This is our next public AI tutor token. And now your chatbot should work. And you can integrate it where automatically generates this whenever you need it. Since you already have the code in this repo to do it. Right, so this is the part you guys got stuck on yesterday. There's an easy tool here in your profile in the bottom left that says token, and it'll help you generate that environment variable. Those are the two things we need to start chatting. And let's see, we'll look at this chatbot example first. Let me see if I still have it. It's inside of your chatbot folder, instead of dashboard. What's up?
Is it possible to kind of hide this feature from the users?
Yeah, you can just get rid of it.
Like, but
Like
they
I built
still need
built
to
a
get a
tool because
token in order to chat.
yeah, you can just get rid of this and do it all on the back end.
Okay.
You only really need to do this like once in a while. It's good to refresh the token sometimes for security purposes. But you can like completely get rid of this page. We this is really just for you guys as the developers.
Okay,
To
so
get the token.
do
Yeah.
I get this right? These are single-use tokens necessary to be able to chat,
They're not
right?
single use. This token will be valid for a while. You can reuse it. It can be used throughout the whole app. And then what you can do is you can set something up where if you ever get an error that token invalid, you can just regenerate it. There's already a route in here that kind of regenerates it, and you can just hide it in code. But
Oh,
this is reusable. It can be used many times for a long period of time.
okay, because I was thinking that I need the user to, or for each chat session to generate a new
No,
token in order to validate like this is legit.
no.
I don't.
You,
Okay.
you don't
Okay.
need it after every session. Like I was using the same token ever since I put this repo up like 4 weeks ago.
Okay.
So yeah, you'll be fine. You don't need
Okay.
it every time. is just like once in a while if it ever fails. And yeah, this code, the get token page, that's really just for you guys as developers. You can delete it. You can do whatever you want with it. You can just like delete the code that shows this and leave it for your other purposes if you ever need it. You can like comment out this link here in the profile. This is really just, again, because you need it at this step. That's why this page exists. But now you should be able to chat. So I'm going to go to my chatbot page. This is a page you guys all have as well, unless you already deleted it. Now, this is the embedded chatbot, right? So this is the easy chatbot. It's like one line of code. You don't need to do much. And you can just chat with it. And of course, it has this watermark on the bottom. But again, the easy way, if you're, let's say, embedding in an already existing website and you want to do it in 5 minutes, it'll work. You can chat to it. Now, the harder way is the streaming, right? All of you have this streaming page. For you guys, it'll look a little bit simpler. This is just what I was working on earlier today. But for all of us, it's going to function the same. We're going to start talking to it. Now, the conversations for you guys, unless you implemented that, are not going to be saved to the database, right? So you're not going to have that storage between devices. So it's something you either need to implement, or you can grab my code for this specific version. I was just working on it earlier today. Here's the link. I'll put it in Slack. You guys can grab this code. This will have saving of the messages. This will have the RAG. This will have, where you're able to have chat history, file history, go back to them, change between chats and all that. Right. So this is pretty simple. You can talk to the AI. It's going to stream the response, meaning it's going to give it to you essentially word by word. If you ask for a bigger response, like maybe tell me about Next.js, you'll see how it kind of streams word by word. Give me the main uses of Next.js. Another thing it has is this formatting. So it has a little bit of a markdown. And then I got to give myself some messages. So let's see where my neon is. But yeah, this is the streaming version of the chatbot. You do have the easy version, but the streaming version, all you need is just those two keys, and then you can do whatever you want with the design. Right? This is the design that I chose to continue with. You guys can even take a screenshot of a design and give it to AI and say, make my chat page look like this. That's what I did with this one, and it interpreted it this way. I just took the basic chat design. And you can go back to your chats. This is from just now, I think. Yeah. And this is where the RAG comes in. So for the RAG, super useful if you want to have this chat with documents feature. You will need this AI Tutor RAG website. So you guys can sign in. It'll give you a key here, API key generation. And that pretty much should get you started. All you need to do is just build out the upload and the retrieval part. Now, I give you an example of how to build it out in here. In my repo, if you guys want to change it in any way, I know Ross also has a demo here where it says demo code. All I did is I went in here, I took the code, and I gave it to the AI, and I said, add it to my app. I want to be able to upload files and chat with files. And then it just started giving me all the changes that I needed to make. I needed to make a bunch of files. But yeah, this example from Ross is super easy. If you want to have a file upload, specifically PDF, highly recommend you guys add this in. And similarly, you're going to need to add that environment variable to your env file. And now let's try this out, right? So you can upload a file. It'll store the file ID. So you'll be able to go back to the file. You won't need to upload it again. But let's try this case study. Let's see what's here. Yeah. Now, since it's going to use the rack, it might be a little bit slower. And also, I got to be a good developer and actually inspect and check my network. And let's see. I'm going to ask, what is in this file? Tells me that it's about a financial merger, et cetera, et cetera. And then maybe I want to keep having the conversation, right? Maybe I'm going to ask, summarize the main ideas behind case study. And simple, you're just chatting with this file, and then in file history, you can go back to the file. So file history, here's all the other files that I've ever uploaded here. Now, to get to this point, really, all you need to do is talk to AI Tutor. All right, you have two options. You can either just take my code, plug it into your code, whatever is missing, you can add in, or you can go with something simpler, something that you built and customized. So guys, questions about chatbots, questions about RAG. It's also something we are going to do essentially again next week. And then in week 6, we're going to play around with the front page and what it looks like and tidying up some things. So guys, any questions? Any questions about setting up from the AI Tutor API side? Because remember, you will need 2 keys, right? You will need this chatbot ID that you need to add to your .env file, your environment variables, and you will also need to generate AI Tutor, next public AI Tutor token from this token menu option in your profile in the bottom left. And this, you'll have a while before it actually expires. Now, let's see. We also spoke last night a little bit about deploying it and how you might have issues on Vercel, right? Instead of Vercel, you can use Railway, or there's another one here, Netlify. I don't know if you guys ever use Netlify. I was just playing around with it this morning. Let's see if it actually works. Looks like it published the last one. And the reason you typically have an issue with Vercel is because Vercel has the timeout, and even when you pay, the timeout doesn't really increase by much. It's always good to check the sign up, make sure it still works in your app. Because sometimes you need to change like a variable for your base URL if you forgot to do that, and then it'll work because it needs that for the login. So let's see if Netlify has the same timeout. Yeah, so it looks like Netlify probably has an even worse timeout than Vercel. Let's see, logs, functions. Oh God, what are these logs? Yeah, unfortunately, it doesn't look like there's logging going on, or at least logging that I can access. Oh well. I'll try a different one. Railway will definitely work. Railway kind of has no limits, and these apps are pretty small. So, um, you could play around with the free tier. I think they give you like $5. I don't think you'll ever exceed that monthly because you're not really generating any content. You're just generating the text that's stored in a database. It's not stored on the client side. If you were to use things like local storage, if you were to use longer calls, all of that will definitely not fly through in Vercel. Even the premium tier, even when you pay them $20 a month, they still have a timeout. If you have images, they'll charge you for image optimization. Very common. But you guys, any questions on the chat bot? Any requests? Anything you want to mention about actually building your app? If you're in the middle of it, if you want to request to speak, if you're not a speaker yet.
This is the time, folks, because otherwise we wind it down. So, you got to move it or lose it and ask, or else it won't be answered. So go ahead.
Happy spring equinox.
I did see the tweets over there in Stonehenge.
Yeah.
Very cool. I see the guy is waving his hand down in the listener audience. I'm waving back to you. I cannot bring you up because I am not a co-host. We have not been able to do that for this space. So we usually reserve the speaker spots for students. But I wanted to say, hey, I see you. I see you waving, and I'm glad that you're here. I don't know if we have any other questions, comments, or concerns, folks. It is a quiet Thursday, but I'm assuming that's because you're building in the background, which happens a lot when you're building side by side and in the zone and concentrating. So don't take that as a negative. I just know that sometimes dead air people are like, what the heck? And then we have to kind of, kind of edit it out of the audio in the background. But honestly, folks, just get comfortable. Get comfortable with the silence and get comfortable with you in the zone and working, because honestly, you're creating some really cool stuff. So, Alisher, if we don't have anything else, did you want to close us out today?
Oh yeah. So guys, I have a few last words. Out there, we're
Excellent.
seeing a lot of your projects. We're loving your projects. Great job. And also for homework, you had homeworks before where you had to create the workflows, create the prompt for the workflow, edit your front end. Now today's homework is really set up this chatbot. Um, the homework is not to set up the RAG. That's something we'll go over again next week. So just focus on setting up the chatbot, putting in those two API keys, and just testing it, see if it works, and changing what it looks like. So you can really change it to anything you want. You guys have my project. You guys have Ross's example project. If you have any questions, feel free to hit me up. I know that AI John wanted to do like a review space. So, I'll try to join as well. So whenever you guys decide you want to schedule that, just ping me. I'll try to join. I'll try to help you guys out. And other than that, have a great Thursday. I know it's morning for most people. And we'll see you guys. Oh, what's up, Magna? I see your hand up.
Yes, sir. I just wanted to say thank you so much. Just we talked about as a class last night, creating a space where we can all jump in and maybe have like a study session or whatever. I just saw the thing on Slack about the poll and trying to find a date and time to do it and stuff like that. And I think it'll be great for us to do that. I just think for you to have to jump in just like that because we said we'd like to do something and you're like, I'll try to be there for you. And I just wanted to let people know that that is an incredible approach to your students and to people who work with you and who appreciate you. Just to let you know that. So no big deal.
Thank you. Guys, thank you so much. And I hope you guys have a great day. And I guess today I'm going to have to leave you guys with the three famous words: peace, love, and innovate.